Welcome back, viewers. It's our second episode of our new season, Season 2. We have our second half of our interview with Scott Sarver of Broadleaf Productions. We hope that you enjoy the second half. I will tell everybody in the audience, I have made every marketing mistake that's out there. If you've done it long enough, you will. You'll spend a lot of money. I've spent a lot of money on Google. I've spent a lot of money on Facebook, doing different stuff for my real estate business or past experiences that I've done. And I think that people, when they don't understand things, tend to complain, then try and figure out why there's an issue that's there. And so I would say 30 years ago, if you went to a business person and said, "Where did you advertise?" They'd be like, "Yellow Pages."
Yeah.
And I want to be a plumber or a attorney or one attorney, whatever, because that's going to be the number one. When people go look and they're going to see me, they're going to find me right there in the Yellow Pages.
Right.
And to an extent, I think that that was true. But it was only if you're A or one, and then the rest of it was kind of like you still were the reputation of people knew who you were or whatever. The mediums have maybe changed a little bit, but we still have radio, even if it's satellite. We have TV, even if it's on the internet. Yes, people are doing their searches there. They have an overabundance of information. That would be the one change I would say that's happened over the course of the last 40 years. But whether it goes from Aristotle to today, I'm going to tell you, if people don't want to watch this video, or they don't want to listen to my radio commercial, or they don't want to watch that 18-minute video, is because I haven't told the story. And I will tell you that looking at your video or your webpage that you have, if I look at other video groups, that's probably the one place where I see that I don't see them pushing is it's the story. It's the story. What's the story?
Yeah, and so, yeah, my webpage is woefully out of date. So I go back and I look at how people are. I'm very interested in how people come to a business, right? How customers are attracted to a business, because I want to understand the historical way that people have come, to engage with a product, engage with a business or a service. But then also looking at that new venue, right? So that's why one of my first questions to my client as we start talking about something is, how have people come to you before? How have people found out about you? And who is it that you want to talk to, right? Because the channels of communication are changing. As you look at Google, as you look at YouTube, they exist out there just to answer questions. Right, that's all Google is doing. That's all YouTube is doing, right? So if I go into Google and type "change front brake on an F-150," what I'm really asking is, how do I change a brake on an F-150? What's involved? It's going to give me websites. It's going to bring up YouTube videos. So you have to understand the questions that get people to the answer, right? And so how that works with the product is, here's my product. What problem am I solving? What solution am I offering? What real estate, right? I need a house.
Mm-hmm.
I need a commercial property. Commercial property is Bloomington normal, right? So hopefully Roadrunner, real estate pops up right there pretty quick. And so the question is, how well are we answering those questions that people want to, right? It's keyword. And so looking at how we create marketing pieces and efforts is, are we answering those questions well? I often say video is not the field of dreams. And by that I mean, it's not if you build it, they will come, right? Unfortunately, it's not just, hey, if we plop down a baseball field in the middle of a cornfield, because the voices tell us to, that we'll have all these baseball players, walk out and play a game. We have to do some work. We have to understand where it is that we need to put that baseball diamond. Where are people even wanting to play baseball? Or do they want to play soccer? Or do they want to play cricket, right? I mean, certainly the sports landscape, and I'm not a sports guy here at all, but certainly the sports landscape around us has changed, right? I never saw a cricket game live where I grew up, but you don't have to go real far here in Bloomington to find a cricket game
Mm-hmm.
or find a lot of cricket fans. So understanding, who it is that you want to talk to, what it is that they're doing, where they are. You may have nothing to do with cricket, but maybe you need to advertise during a cricket game because that's where your audience is interested in, and you find those hubs, those connection points to that. So yeah, I become incredibly interested in how people are coming across things. Did I hit your question?
You did.
Okay.
What I would lead to my next question is and this happened before we talked, before you're coming in today, when you came into the lobby. And the thing is, using the hunting analogy, how do you help your clients that are going on video, which is very uncomfortable, almost makes you feel like you're naked when you're out here, you're doing this, but a deer in headlights.
Right.
And how do you turn that deer in the headlights, them like talking about absolutely nothing in front of you, to absolute brilliance when they're in front of 500 people at tables that are there that they want to impress their friends and family and colleagues?
Yep. So there are, I'm going to take this in two different directions. If I'm doing an interview, right? So if I'm sitting down, kind of like what we're doing here, where you're asking me questions, certainly we've got lights and cameras and whatnot, and I'm aware of them. You've become accustomed to this. This is the world that I live in. But I interview a lot of people for a living that have never sat in front of a camera, that have never seen lights, don't have a boom mic coming over the top of them, don't have somebody sitting there listening intently with headphones and asking questions. One of the very first things I do is I turn off all the tally lights on my cameras. There are no red lights on my cameras that anyone can see but me. And that helps them, to go, oh, well, if the red light's not on, he's not recording. And I've shot any number of interviews where somebody's incredibly nervous and, they go, oh, so I'll hit record, I'll make sure that the audio is good, put my headphones around my neck. And then I'm like, well, let's just sit and talk about this. And I'm doing the interview. They don't realize it. When we get done, they're like, okay, I'm ready to start. I'm like, we're done. Right? We've wrapped it up. And so sometimes just shutting off the little tally light helps people to overcome a little bit of that nervousness because it's not recorded, it's not permanent. The other side of it, if I do a lot of things that are scripted and that happen through a teleprompter. And that is a skill that is learned. Just like anything, I think this is one thing that people haven't figured out about video is they go, well, it's just me talking about my product. Yes, it is you talking about your product, but have you done it in this particular way before? We can be very comfortable talking colloquially, right? And I come out of a sales background. My dad had a shoe store growing up. I sold cell phones my first couple of years of college. So I was used to interacting with people and making sales, but that's a very colloquial conversation, right? We're reading body language. We're making eye contact. We're going, oh, are these people connecting? Are they not? But when we go to a teleprompter and we go to a camera in front of us, it is a completely different environment. We're stripped out of the response. There's nothing. I'm getting no feedback from that camera. It's not nodding at me. It's not, kind of encouraging me. I don't know if I'm connecting. And then you add a teleprompter and you add a script that we're trying to deliver verbatim. And we add another layer to that. And the number one thing that I would tell people is practice. Practice, practice, practice. It's easier than ever to take your cell phone, turn it into selfie mode, or set it up, put it onto a stand, and talk into your cell phone. Practice delivering your script, what you want to say, because that's going to make it easier. If I know where I'm going, if it's in my head and I'm comfortable with it, then it makes it a lot easier to deliver. And I can tell when clients haven't done it. All right, and I have a client. They're great clients. I've developed great friendships with all the folks that I've worked with for this client, and we deliver. We make training videos for them. And this last year it was in the spring of this year. I said, all right, I need to see the scripts 2 weeks beforehand. And really, I don't care to see the script other than I'm just going to kind of take a quick look at it to make sure, to me, it makes sense, that we don't have a bunch of acronyms or things of that nature. But I do that because I want to make sure that that script is done for the talent to read, and they're bringing somebody from on their team to do it. But I can tell whether they've read it, practice delivering it or not, as soon as we get into the room.
Mm-hmm.
And they know when they start doing it, they're like, oh, yeah, I didn't do this. Because reading a teleprompter is not reading. It's not, hi, Michael, I'm here today to talk to you about Broadleaf Video Production. It's, hi, Michael, I'm here to talk to you today about Broadleaf Video Production.
Mm-hmm.
Practice throwing in the pauses, practice throwing those things in. And it's a skill that's learned. It's a skill that's practiced. The times that I get in front of the camera, it takes me a second to kind of center myself a little bit, make sure I've got everything set up, but then deliver things, because it can be intimidating. It's interesting. I go on to a site, we're working through a script, and I'm like, hey, can you say this line like this? And I'll deliver it. I'm like, can you just parrot how I'm saying this? And they'll be like, well, why don't you just do this? And I'm like, no, I'm not your on-screen talent. I said, but the difference is, for 20 years, 25, however many years it is, I have listened to people talk, and I have practiced listening to how people articulate things, and I have practiced, it'd be nice if we could deliver it this way. It's right. It's why newscasters have the newscaster voice. Hi, I'm Scott. They practice it. It's their delivery mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're doing this, right, as a business, as someone else, grab your phone, shoot it 30 times, and then be critical and evaluate it and go, did I like my pauses? Do I need to do more pauses? What do I do with my hands, right? I call it the Ricky Bobby syndrome. What do I do with my hands when I'm on, when I'm on TV? Are you a hand talker? And if I'm obviously a hand talker to some extent, so if I was trying to sit here all still and not talking about my hands, I wouldn't communicate as well. So those are the things that it's good to sit down, record yourself, and see what it's coming back to, what type of delivery you are. Listen to it. Is my inflection good? Are my pauses good? Do I sound like a robot, or do I sound like somebody that's really impassioned and excited about what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm. So what I would say is, you want the people that are coming in before you to go and practice, and they may still be a little bit more robotic.
Mm-hmm.
And so just putting out the plug and everything, RoadrunnerZX would really like to get an interview with Christopher Cross, who's coming in March 26th of this year.
Yeah, the ticket. I looked up ticket prices for his concert.
Yeah. And so I've been watching a lot of videos and things, trying to get prepared so we can hopefully get that interview. But that said, one of the things he talked about on some of his biggest hits are that they had practiced a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then the producer, once they got into the studio, or I think he talked about his ex-brother-in-law, was like, I'm sorry, can we play that back?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the organic that happens, that you're a part of afterwards, that then can help them to have that reality of the practicing. But I think so many people are like, well, everybody says that if I go in there and practice, I'm going to sound like a robot. Well, that's where you come in.
Right. Well, to bring it to the musician analogy, is it 10,000 hours they say before you master something? That you have to have 10,000 hours of practice before you become a master of anything. So all of that time, take Christopher Cross, take any musician, right? They are building on all of that practice which is why they're so good. There are people that are more gifted musically than others, right? And there are some legitimate prodigies that are out there. But there are people that have practiced and practiced and practiced, and that's why it's easy for them. So why should it be any different for us on video in doing this particular art form if we haven't practiced it? Mm-hmm. So I 50th anniversary of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, right? Mm-hmm. Just a month or so ago. Well, in fact, a month ago today was the 50th anniversary. And I was listening to a podcast, and they had an author on, Eric, and I forget his last name, but he just wrote a book, The Gales of November. And he was on a podcast that I was listening to. And long story short, we would know of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald if it wasn't for Gordon Lightfoot's song. But certainly without Gordon Lightfoot's song, we probably wouldn't be talking about the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald in the way that we are today. And I found this interesting because they said, the host asked, he's like, if it wasn't for the song, and the guy that wrote the book goes, absolutely, if it wasn't for the song, nobody'd care, right? When it came time to record that, so Gordon Lightfoot and his band, they were recording an album, had been in the studio for 3.5 days, and they wrapped up all the tracks they wanted. And at that point in time, Lightfoot had written the song, and he was kind of messing around with it a little bit in the studio. And the recording engineer basically said, you guys are paying me for 5 days whether you are here or not. So why don't you lay that track down? Now, nobody else in the band had played that song with Lightfoot. Right? They had, as a group, they had never played that song together. They'd never played it all the way through. So the band kind of looked at Lightfoot and said, what do we do? And he gave some instruction. He goes, well, drums, I'll cue you whenever it's time, all that sort of stuff. So they recorded the track. And the recording that you hear today that we all know was not just the first take, the first recording of that song ever. It was also the first time that band had ever played that song. Had ever played it, period, was the recording that we listen to that we know today. But without all that practice, without, they built the synergy working together to understand, I know, kind of here's where this is where my part fits in. I'm going to watch him for my cue on the drums. You couldn't take a first-year drummer and go, I'm going to nod you in and go play this. It's all the years that drummer spent practicing beforehand. It's all the years that the electric guitar player played beforehand. And, Lightfoot writing all that. And so as we look at delivering anything, right, the first product, if you're dealing with the manufacturer, did the first product that you make, your first prototype, was it exactly right? Well, no. Right? You had to refine it. I watched a guy that was making Frisbee golf discs out of recycled plastic. And it's talking about his process of how he built his business. Started in his garage. He's like, that first disc I made was horrible. Mm-hmm. It was heavy. It was clunky. I was doing it in this particular process in my garage, but then I learned more about injection molding, yada, yada. And so he's built this huge business making recycled Frisbees. Mm-hmm. But he spent hours, months, years figuring out how to make a Frisbee. And we go, well, it's just a Frisbee. Well, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Mm-hmm. And so I always look at that for anything, right? Whether we are a craftsman, right? Making fine woodworking, if we are a cook, if we're a videographer, if we're someone delivering to a screen, the first time you do it's probably not going to be a hit. It's
going to be horrible. It's like,
right.
Let's face it, like very, very few times you hit gold the first time you do it. That's the reason I would use the example of Michael Jordan. Everybody looks at Michael Jordan of the person floating through the air, putting the ball into the hoop. That same kid didn't make his freshman basketball team.
Right, and how much time did he spend in his driveway?
Yep.
Shooting on a non-regulation hoop, or not in his fancy shoes. Mm-hmm. It's all those hours, and I've heard people say, "Oh, you're such a great musician" to other people. They're like, "I practiced and you didn't." right? And I see that within my music. I go, yeah, if I sit down and I'm actually playing 2 hours a day, I'm working on technique. Yeah, I feel pretty good about stuff. If I haven't played my guitar or the piano in a while, I understand things, right? I can play a chord. I understand how to form a chord. But am I getting into that chord as smoothly as I want to? Am I able to do something else with that chord if I haven't spent the time doing it, right? So the same thing in speaking, the same thing in delivering things to camera. We understand words. We understand how to make a sentence. We all talk colloquially. But delivering to camera is different. And if we haven't practiced it, I can dribble a basketball. There's no way I'm ever going to, I couldn't make a JV basketball team here in town, let alone the NBA. So it's all about practice. It's all about what you do. And that is to say that I don't expect everyone that sits in front of my camera to deliver things like a spokesperson does, like a paid actor does. But spending a little bit of time with it helps make that more realistic.
I'd like to thank our sponsor today, Roadrunner Real Estate. They are a full-service real estate company that does both commercial and residential real estate. They give free consults with their decades of experience. So if you're looking for that personal touch when you're trying to take care of your real estate, call Roadrunner Real Estate today. They'd love to help you. So Scott, what I'd like to know is how has your faith shaped your business?
Sure. I think for me personally, and this is probably the best way that I can answer this, is when I hung my shingle out to be a freelancer and let this be how I make my livelihood, there was a pretty strong, if you will, pucker factor, right? Of going, hey, I'm only eating, so to speak, what I kill, right? I'm only getting paid whenever I get a job. And I have been blessed that at any moment where I feel the stress of, I don't have anything on the books, that very vividly, I remember 3 or 4 times praying, going, God, okay, I'm good for the next 6 months. After that, I don't know. Am I going to have to go bag groceries someplace? Am I going to have to go back to the 9-to-5 world? And on these occasions I'm thinking about, I was laying in bed praying through that. And the next morning I got calls for jobs that were significant jobs. And for me, it strengthened my faith in not in a prosperity way, but just reinforcing the faithfulness of God, right? I'm not saying, oh, because I've lived, right, God is going, it's not a prosperity thing, but I understand that God has been faithful, and saying, hey, this is what I want to do. This is where I feel that I am. And anytime that I would be concerned, it seems that things have been provided for. And for me personally, that has been, I've been blessed by that personally. And I've been blessed by the clients that I've had. I've worked with churches. I also worked with a lot of folks that are not affiliated with churches. But I've been blessed with a lot of organizations that help people within the community. And that is something that I can really kind of get behind, right? Is organizations that work with and help the community. Have been great clients of mine.
Yeah, I see so many times with different business owners that it's like, well, I lead with faith first and in the door. And for some people, I mean, that's great. But for me personally, my faith is, it comes in as we have discussions back and forth or whatever. But I will tell you that on a day-to-day basis, it does shape my decisions. It shapes what type of clients. This will probably be the 3rd video that I've said this on. I'm not everybody's realtor, but I'm your realtor. So when it comes in, I want that personal relationship that's in there. Well, that personal relationship kind of goes back to who I am, and my faith is a part of who I am.
Well, and I've often said I treat my business like Switzerland, right? I'm not, Broadleaf is not going to make political statements. That's just because, especially today, it's so alienating to make a political stand for anything. I'm not shy about what I believe, but I'm also not going to lead with that. And I think the same way with faith is, I've never shied away about talking about my faith with my clients, where I've come from, where I've learned what I do. But as a businessman, I'm not there to proselytize you, but I'm also not going to be afraid to say, hey, it's pretty clear. I would hope who I am and what I do, that we can have conversations, but I'm not going to lead with that, right? It's like you say, I'm not hiding it, but I'm not going to lead with it, right? So,
finalizing the stuff with the business. I'm going to say this on a general statement of, as you look at other advertising, other things that companies are doing, and hopefully I state this in a way that makes sense, that pain point, where you just look at a piece of advertising and just say to yourself, it's wrong. What I say to a lot of people is and this is true in real estate, people may not know how to fix something, but they can usually almost pick out when there's a problem. They're happy to. So they'll walk into a house and be like, I don't know what's going on. You're like, well, it's the shag carpet, it's the green, they hate this or whatever. So from that pain process of, you see it happen over and over again, something that you're like, if somebody would just hire me or someone that's in my field, this would be fixed and your profits and your business would go so much better. Like, do you have any examples or any explain that?
I'm not a real not fun. As I watch TV, Tiffany at times gets frustrated with me. I'm like, you're not saying anything. She loves baseball. It's on TV. I'm generally on my iPad, and in my deal that I've struck with her, I'm like, watch baseball as long as I'm good at making fun of the sportscasters, right? Because sportscasters say some of the most inane things ever, right? If you'd hit that ball, 6 inches wider, it would have been a single. Yeah, had he hit it over the fence, it would have been a home run. But I'm like, but he didn't. One of the things years ago in college, all the guys would be watching football. And the officials used to say false start prior to the snap. Yeah. When else could a false start happen? It can't happen after the snap. Now, they don't say it anymore. But I listen to things like that, and there's a lot of times that I will listen to people speaking, whether it's on TV, marketing efforts or whatnot. I'm like, you're saying a lot of words, but are you saying anything? And someone may have that critique of me today, right? Of what I've said. He talked a lot, but did he say anything? So I'm always kind of looking at what your messaging is, and are you clear in it? Do we understand where to go and purchase things? I don't remember exactly where, what event this was, but there was an advertisement for an event that talked about it was a band playing or something. There were no dates, no times, no location. I'm like, this does nothing, right? It's, this band's playing. Great. Where are they playing? And the only way that you could find anything out, it was on Facebook that I saw it, was by clicking on that, who shared it, and going to their page, and then going to their website and looking at the concert listings. And I'm like, how do you make a concert, how do you make a bill for a concert that doesn't have time and location? And so there are a lot of things like that, and I think it gets back to the proximity, right? The curse of knowledge. I know Christopher Cross is playing at the BCPA. Yeah, that's great. He's coming. It's really exciting. Woo! When? Is it December? Is it next week? Is it 3 months from now? Is it next fall? And I think what I've seen, they've done a good job in their advertising. But for example, but if if there weren't those things communicated, I'd be like, oh, you're missing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's my biggest takeaway is it gets into that self-editing, self-evaluation notion of you do the work and then you take a look at it and you evaluate it. And one of the practices I do is a lot of times I will, if I'm cutting an interview especially, I will cut the content together and I will pull it together, do the video, and then I walk away from it. If I have time to walk away from it for a day, I will. If I only have a couple hours, but I will separate myself from the video and I will go do something else and try to clear that out of my mind and watch it with a fresh set of eyes. And the reason being is because I'm still bringing all that other stuff because I saw all the stuff that I'm leaving on the cutting room floor. I had all the conversations that before I started rolling the camera and after and with the client. So I want to come back and watch what I pulled together just with a fresh set of eyes, as fresh as I can make them, and watch it. And I'll be honest, it's hard to do. I love scrubbing at higher speeds and listening to things like Alvin and the Chipmunks because, yeah, it's only 3 minutes, but man, 3 minutes, can seem long, especially when you're reviewing it, when you spend all day with a project. But I would say the same thing for materials that are being printed, for emails, marketing things. I can't tell you how many emails I've sent where after I hit send, I'm like, I misspelled that, or I put that note, I started my sentence here and then I reiterated here and I didn't need to. And so I always, if I'm sending out like a bulk email to a group of people, I will draft it, I'll let it sit, do something else, go back to it, reread it before I hit send, just so that I don't bring what I was thinking or making sure what I was thinking in my head actually made it through my fingers out onto the keyboard.
Well, I say this all the time to people, especially when I'm mentoring people that are younger than me, of the thing of I want to be the dumbest person in the room, because most of the best ideas I've ever had were never mine. It was that somebody came and said, here's this, and I was able to take a couple pieces and put it together. And that's where I see your business and everything is, well, you're not just a videographer. You're many more things that are on there. And maybe that one phone call can help grow your business that gets you out of saying, well, I'm not successful today because there's no yellow pages.
Yeah. Well, I think that, and to grab an idea that you said there, the camera is probably one of the smaller parts of my job, one of the smaller parts of what I do. And there have been a couple of times that I've had interns or people that job shadow and say, oh, I want to learn this. And I'm like, well, okay, here's what you got to understand. Cameras are cool, all right? Part of the reason why I got into photography, videography is the gear is cool, right? When I was a little kid, I loved cameras. I loved the mechanical things. They're fun to manipulate. They feel cool in your hands. They've got a weight to them, all of those types of things. But the camera is only a small portion of what I do, right? There's a lot more that's the prep time that goes into it. There's the time at my computer where I've got to, after I've shot, I've got to come back and bring it all together in some meaningful type of way. And so, you can either be a camera person or you can be a videographer, right? And I think that there's a difference between those two, right? You can just be a guy that goes out and runs a camera, but to do everything else, there's a lot more to it. And I would even say, right, the guys that are out shooting baseball games or broadcast TV, there's a lot of engineering work that goes on behind the scenes before you ever turn the camera on. And so but I would also say at this point in time, I can do so much more with my phone than what I could with the first studio I ever worked in.
Yep.
Right, my phone has got so much more capabilities. So it's more accessible than ever. We're seeing content produced at a greater rate. And so to stand out from that, again, that's where I kind of come in. I'm not the greatest videographer in the world, but I do my best to understand and hopefully deliver a product and have my clients work through the process to say, how do we best connect with our customers, with our
So we've talked about the pain point. Now let's hit the other side. And this is probably one of the hardest things that I see with people trying to describe, because everybody's like, I want to be humble. And that's not what this is. So anybody that's seen the movie Forrest Gump, mid 90s, for the most part, you know, they have the stupid is, stupid does. He's this humble guy kind of moving through life. But there is one moment in that movie, if you watch it closely, where he is not humble, he's bragging. And that's where he's sitting on the bench and he said, I can run like the wind blows. Mm-hmm. So for you, you have your humbleness, but what is that place where you would say to everybody, I can run like the wind blows?
I think in some ways it's distilling down to understanding what is being said or what is being communicated. I had a client hand me a script, and it was a marketing person, right, that had gone to school for marketing, and handed me the script, and I looked at it, I'm like, this is horrible, right? And I read it. I took it back to my hotel room that night. And when they handed it to me, I said, can I take and rewrite this? You know, can I massage this a little bit? And I was chatting with him. I'm like, what is it that we're wanting to accomplish here, right? Because as the script originally stood, it kind of had two different focuses. And I could tell that it was written, the sales team had given a lot of input on it, and the marketing team had given a lot of input on it. And I've worked in the corporate setting where you have sales team and a marketing team, and I know a lot of times they don't always align, which to me is kind of funny, because they should work hand in hand, right? Marketing supports sales, sales supports marketing, but I'm like, okay, we're just torn in too many different directions. So I chatted with him. I'm like, where did you get your information? What are we trying to do? All those sorts of things. And I rewrote the script, and I said, we need to break these out into two separate pieces, because they were aiming at two different groups of potential customers that were not interrelated at all. And I rewrote the script, took it back to him, like, oh, this is great. I'm not the world's greatest scriptwriter, but I could distill down to and say, let's separate these two things. Let's focus on this for this particular client. Let's focus on this for this particular potential client. And, you know, I presented back to him. I said, does this make sense for you, right? Does what I have written make sense for you? And so I think whether it's I'm not good at it or because I'm not internal to them, that I can kind of, you know, say some of those things back to them. Same client on a different project in a different organization, they had a phrase that just kind of stood out to me, kind of funny. It was kind of like Sex Panther from Anchorman, right? Mm-hmm. 60% of the time, it works every time. I'm like, and I told my contact, I'm like, are you guys shining me on with this? I'm like, this is, and you have to develop that relationship, right? I couldn't lead out the first conversation with them saying that. I developed a relationship with this particular client and my contact, and I'm like, this is kind of like this is a Sex Panther quote, right? 60% of the time, this works every time. It's like 7 out of the top 10 of the top 20, and I'm like, huh? I have to do math, right? Why do I have to do math? Why don't you just say 15 of the top? Mm-hmm. And you know, and there was some particular language internally that was close to them, right? Mm-hmm. That we couldn't change it, but I'm just like, and once I said that to my contact, they're like, oh, now I can't. Yeah, you're right. That's, mm-hmm. and so I think sometimes it's cutting through the chaff and getting mm-hmm. down to the kernel. And I think that comes from years of editing, mm-hmm. right? Of listening to a lot of stuff and going, what's the nugget? You know, mm-hmm. let me pull the nugget out of here. And again, I think that's a skill. That's something learned mm-hmm. by just wading through hours and days of video.
So we're going to go to our final segment here.
Okay.
It's called our rapid fire segment, which means for you, unlike other people I have, rapid fire.
Sure.
Okay. So my first question to you is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Absolutely.
Okay. Your dog, was it named after the villain
Absolutely.
from Die Hard?
Let me interject.
Okay.
German short hair pointer. He needed a German name. I understand that Hans Gruber was actually Austrian. Close enough, same generic region. There's a lot of Hanses. Anyway, go on. Hans is my dog's name.
The next one is, you already mentioned her, Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
If she were sitting here today, what would she say your most annoying habit is?
Oh, we don't have time for that question.
So my final question is this. Your great-great-grandfather had 6 fingers on one hand.
Absolutely.
Okay? Do you wish you had that trait because you think it would make you a better guitar player?
No.
Okay.
He had an extra pinky.
So we have the cameras here. Is there anything that you feel that we've missed that you want the public to know about you and Broadleaf?
No, I feel like I've talked too much already.
Okay.
This is what happens when you put a videographer in front of the camera and ask him to talk.
I'd like to thank you for coming out today, Scott.
Thank you.
And that you were talking about the great things that are happening with your business, why you do what you do. I would encourage, if you're watching the video today, to go out, look at his website.
It needs to be updated.
Well,
I'm not a web designer, and I would say this to all of you. Maybe my closing thought, if I may. You all are really good at what you do, right? Whether it's real estate, you're selling something, that is what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can all learn a little bit about video, but if you need help with video, that's what I do, right? I think I've learned at this stage of my life to focus on the things that I do well, professionally, and dabble in the things that I don't do well as a hobby.
Mm-hmm. So you met him. Thank you for watching RoadrunnerZX, and we'll see you next week. Viewers, thank you for watching the video with Scott Sarver of Broadleaf Productions. I hope you enjoyed finding out a little bit more about who he is and his video process. We look forward to seeing you next week. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe to our channel so you get the latest updates. Go out to our Facebook page and like our Facebook page. But until next week, we'll see you then.